All right, it's 4:30, so we're going to begin. I'm going to call the meeting to order. First item is to amend the agenda for a grant acceptance of a budget transfer to the airport. Legislator Dibble has made the motion and Legislator Yunker has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's carried. So we'll put
Mary
that
Ann,
on
do you have-
to Mr. Hens.
Mary Ann,
Yes,
you have to assign me or something?
I'm going to get to that right now, Andy. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's fine. I just want to make a notice that my name is Marian Clantenberg. I am serving as the temporary chair of public service, having been the committee chair of this numerous years ago and the senior member of the committee. Legislator Stein asked me to fill in with the unexpected resignation of Legislator Hilche. To that end, she has also appointed Legislator Young to sit on this committee today. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, we're going to move forward with the approval of the minutes from April 13th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Legislator
Second.
Dibble and Legislator Young, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. All right, the first item is our Director of Planning, Felipe, and he has several items, or 2 items to talk about. Go ahead, Felipe.
Sure. We received an application during our annual enrollment to enroll land into agricultural districts. It's about 33 acres in the town of Byron. About 2/3 of it is prime farmland. It's owned by a farm operation, and they want to add this to Ag District number 4. The process calls for the setting of a public hearing. And I'm asked, the first item asks for you to set it the June 10th meeting.
Okay, do I have a motion to set a public hearing for Ag District 4?
Legislator Young.
Thank
I'll
you,
second.
Andy. Second, Legislator Yunker. Comments or questions for our director?
Just one, Madam Chair. I'm very familiar with this property and it certainly fits into the Ag District well. There's no issues there.
Very good. All right, so if there's no other comments or questions, we'll take the vote on setting the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's carried. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Felipe, number 2.
Yeah, so the second item is basically the way that we've done this in the past to sort of speed up the process is if at the end of that public hearing, you hold this resolution to the end of the meeting. After you close the public hearing and you feel comfortable, there's nobody that has spoken against putting it in the Ag District, you can go ahead and adopt that into the Ag District so they don't have to wait an extra month or so to get that approved. So and that's the way we've done it in the past.
Right, so this is the resolution, which is the basis of the public hearing.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to accept resolution 2 to move that? Thank you, Gordy. Legislator Dibble. And a second. Legislator Yunker, thank you. All right, all those in favor, any other comments or questions about that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's carried. Anything else, Felipe?
Nope, that's all. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Take care,
See
everyone.
you next month.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, next up is Teresa, the Justice for Children Advocacy Center Coordinator, and she has a salary amendment for the Advocacy Center. Go ahead, Teresa. Is she there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. We recently accepted the resignation of a community service victim assistant. And I'm just requesting to eliminate that position and replace it with a family advocate position. The community service victim assistant job description is kind of a holdover from when Genesee Justice and the CAC were merged as one organization. The family advocate job description is a lot better fit for the duties that are conducted by the advocates at the CAC.
Okay.
And as I
thank
put in my memo, everything is the same. It's the same number of hours, the same pay, just a different name.
you. All right. Can I have a
So moved.
motion for this, to move this?
That's motion.
Thank you, Andy. Can I have a second? Thank you, Gordy. All right, comments or questions for Teresa?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Teresa, is this position, would it be provisional or probationary or permanent?
Did you hear the question,
Gary.
Teresa?
I didn't.
He wanted to know if it was provisional or permanent.
This one would be provisional. We don't have an active list. We previously had somebody who filled a family advocate position who actually has recently left as well. So we don't have an active list, and we're currently hiring, once this is approved, 2 family advocates provisionally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And would that have to go through the manager's office because we have the salary free, the hiring freeze? Or have you done that already?
Yep, I've already run that. Yeah, I've already run that through. It's a 100% grant funded position. So basically, if we don't fill it, we just send the money back to the state, which I always like to avoid.
Yes, all right. How are things, just while we've got you on there? What's the situation like with the conditions that we're under now?
In the first month of the pause order, it was very, very quiet and pretty alarming because, you know, it's not like child abuse stops just because there's a pandemic. But in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had quite an uptick. And I would say that we're about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way back up to where we were before the pause order. So things are coming out, which is good. I was really concerned that the lack of access to mandated reporters would be a problem. But what we have been seeing is a lot of like problematic sexual behaviors on the part of children. And I think all the time that they're spending at home with their parents might be bringing things to light that might have been missed had, you know, they not been locked in a constant, you know, home environment where
Right.
there's pretty much uninterrupted contact.
All right, I was wondering, you know, just with the circumstances being so different, how that was affecting, you know, our vulnerable children out there.
Yeah, to catch up.
What are the qualifications? Is there a difference in the qualifications for the 2 positions that you just realigned?
The qualifications are almost identical except for the nature of the experience that's required. So the qualifications are an associate's degree in criminal justice, human services, or something similar to that, or a high school diploma with, I believe it's 2 or 3 years of full-time paid experience working as a victim advocate someplace else. So, you know, as a rape crisis person, domestic violence person, something like that.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for bringing that forward and for all the work you're doing. I know it's
Thank
not an
you.
easy job. Okay.
No.
So all those in favor, did we already vote on this, Pam? Did I take this vote yet? Pam?
No, you did not. You did not talk about yet.
I got off track there. I started talking. All right. If there any other questions for Teresa? All right. All those in favor, of resolution 3, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Carrie, thank you.
Thank you. Stay healthy.
You too. All right. Tim Hens. Is Tim there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I just can't see you. I only see like 3 other people in front of me. So I'm
Okay.
all right. So go ahead, Tim. You have resolution 4, the highway fuel bids.
Yep. Our first item is the renewal of our annual contract that we put out for highway fuel products. This includes the diesel and unleaded that's used at both the fuel farms at the highway garage here on Cedar Street, and as well as the Town of Batavia's fuel farm at the Town of Batavia Highway Department. This is a local contract that we put out our own specs on. We've had a contract with NOCO Fuel Products for the last year, and they've done a really good job of providing us the fuel. on time and as promised in terms of pricing. For those that aren't familiar with how we price this, there's not any specific price listed in the resolution because the price fluctuates throughout the year, just like it does at the gas pumps that you buy retail. We use what is called a rack pricing system. Basically, the oil producers industry, OPIS, puts out a report weekly that we use to generate our base price, and then NOCO and other dealers basically mark that price up either as a deduct or as an add-on for delivery. So NOCO was actually the lowest bidder when we did this last year, and again, they've met their quota in terms of their delivery pricing, and we've had pretty good success with them. So I would like to renew with them one more year as under the terms of our existing contract.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion for resolution 4?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Christian. Second by Gordy. Comments or questions?
Still one question. So under this kind of arrangement, when the prices go down like they are, then we get the same advantage everybody else gets, right?
That is correct. Right now, we're paying 64 cents a gallon right now for unleaded fuel, and our diesel is $1.09. So this time last year, we were actually paying $2.35 for diesel, and we were paying about $2.09 for unleaded. So our prices have dropped substantially. We do mark it up 22 cents a gallon based on our agreement with the town of Batavia to put money aside for the fuel farm maintenance and repair and replacement in the future. But right now, all of our agencies and ourselves we're paying less than $1 per gallon for unleaded. So we've seen a dramatic drop. We do, our road machinery budget covers the cost of the fuel. Traditionally, the last, I would say 3 or 4 years, the prices have been fairly stable. Between diesel and unleaded, we buy almost $1 million worth of fuel a year. We'll be way, way down on that. I've done some budget crunching, and I think we'll probably be in the order of $600,000 or $700,000 in fuel prices by the end of the year.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Christian.
Tim, just curious, is there a reason that you don't contract ahead, that you don't buy loads of fuel ahead with these prices? It's pretty typical for large buyers. I'm just curious if you do that at all.
Talking like almost like a futures contract type of deal.
Yes.
I don't know. It's definitely something worth exploring. I've never done it since I've been highway superintendent. I don't believe anyone around us has done it. I can definitely check into our suppliers and see if that's an option for us in the future.
I'm sure the NOCO's sales rep would, it'd be probably worth talking to them through. We've booked a bunch of ours at these price levels through the fall and even in the next year.
Okay.
That's a good point. I think that's a good idea. We should, definitely look into it. Why not? With the historically low levels we're at, great if we could lock some of that in long term. Any other comments or questions? All right, all those in favor of resolution 4, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. All right, next one, sodium chloride.
Yeah, next item is an award of bid for our road salt that we use for snow and ice control. We put out a local spec. We had two bidders, American Rock and Cargill. American Rock Salt was the low bidder. It was actually the exact same price that we had in the 2020 contract, which is $51.29 per ton. This is a 1-year contract that runs through from this October until next September. And again, it's a contract that all of our towns in the city and all the municipalities in Genesee County piggyback off of.
All right, can I have a motion, please? Gordy,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
Andy, thank you. Comments or questions regarding this contract, this bid? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay, shared services contract, is that our next one? No, fire alarm.
Next one I have is for the fire alarm control panel.
All right, go ahead and tell us what this is.
This is the capital project we established for the replacement of the fire alarm control panel at 5130 Main Street. It is a leased building, but we are in charge of the operation and maintenance of the fire alarm system within the building. The fire alarm panel we have right now is not working at all. So we have received a quote from Technical Systems Group off of state contract to replace the actual control panel. The cost to do so is $12,673.18. Again, this would come from the capital project that was created recently using the 1% sales tax. It's about $3,000 under what we budgeted.
Motion.
I have a motion for this.
Motion.
Thank you, Andy. And second from Christian. Comments or questions regarding the fire alarm proposal? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Resolution 7.
This is our shared services agreement. This has been every 2 years since 2006, we've approved this agreement. Shared services is obviously something that's been going on for much longer than 2006, but by state law, in 2006, they asked towns and counties to basically enter into a formal agreement so that when we do share equipment and labor on jobs, there's basically a legal binding agreement behind it in terms of shows who covers liability and costs and whatnot. Our agreement that we currently have expires this June, and I would recommend replacing it with another two-year agreement to take it through June 2022.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion for this resolution, please? Thank you, Gordy. And I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Comments or questions for Tim regarding the shared services agreement? This is exactly what we've had in place, Tim? No changes?
Yes,
Okay,
no changes, just the date.
all right. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next resolution.
Next resolution is a award of bid and approval of a consultant agreement relative to the Judge Road over Whitney Creek Federal Aid Bridge project. We recently received bids from 3 bidders or 3 contractors for the replacement of this bridge, which is in the town of Alabama. The bids were actually super competitive. Our engineer's estimate for the replacement of the project was $670,000. Okino Corp from West Seneca was the lowest bidder at $496,000. So we were about $180,000 under the engineer's estimate, which is awesome. And we also did review and negotiate a consultant agreement with Lou Engineers, who was the designer of the project, to do the construction inspection for us in order to meet the federal aid requirements. That contract's $112,000. So the 2 contracts together are actually lower than what we had figured we'd spend on just the construction contract at $608,000. The capital project is a federally funded project, so it's 80% federal aid. It has a 15% state match, and then we have a 5% match from local sales tax. So we'll actually end up using quite a bit less sales tax than we thought. So I would recommend moving the two contracts together so we can move forward with the construction of that project this summer.
Thank you. Can I have a motion for this resolution, please?
I'll move it.
Christian? Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Comments or questions regarding this?
I have a question. Just
Go ahead,
in terms of cash flow. In terms of cash flow, Tim, how does the flow of cash work? Do we have to pay for this and then get reimbursed?
Yes, we pay up front, but we can submit pay requests quite frequently. So basically, every time we get a pay request from a contractor or the consultant, I can turn around and submit a federal aid request to the state, and that usually gets paid to us quite quickly. Scott traditionally has used either cash from the county road fund or the infrastructure and bridge reserve to front the money and then reimburse himself once we get paid. So again, the federal aid turnaround on the 80% portion is usually within 2 to 3 days. It happens through ACH. And the federal aid or the state aid, the Marchicelli aid, sometimes takes a little bit longer, but we get reimbursed on that too.
So Scott is aware, I mean, cash flow is just going to change over the next number of months just because of what we're going through. So as long as he's aware of what we're doing and that it's coming kind of thing, and he's okay with it?
I'm fine.
Correct.
Yep, I'm fine with it.
There he is. Good.
Sorry, Scott,
Thank
I didn't
you.
realize you were on.
He looks
in the
like he's in the
Bills'
Bills
locker
locker. Oh, he's killing me. Okay.
Oh, you are in the
Uh,
Bills locker room. Very nice.
Yeah, I was just saying, head coach earlier today.
Oh, that's funny. Do we have any trepidation here regarding the state's ability to pay us this money? How confident are we that we can count on this funding?
This is even the state provided portion of it is really pass through money from the feds. So we have been given a solid green light at both the federal level and the state level to continue forward on this funding because it is all federally funded. It's not really reliant on New York State at all.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing, I guess. All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Resolution 9.
This is another award of bid. This is for a landslide that we are currently exhibiting on Hickox Road in the town of Alexander. For anyone that's been down that road recently, we did do some repaving last year, so the pavement surface is really nice. But if you get about halfway down Hickox Road, the east shoulder for several hundred feet has dropped, cracked and dropped away. Right now, it's probably up about 12, 18 inches lower than the road. The entire slope, that entire embankment is basically failing and sliding downhill into a pond, which someone had constructed at the bottom of the slope many, many years ago. We have been investigating it over most of the winter. We've engaged engineers and finally got a geostabilization firm from Colorado to come out and give us a quote to do some repairs. We're going to use Delaware County's RFP, which is on almost an identical slope failure in Delaware County, basically piggybacking. And the quote that was provided to us based off that contract and those specifications is $95,845. We already have a capital project in place with County Road 5, and then it is funded or will be funded with 2020 Pave New York funds. So that would be the source of the project.
All right, can I have a motion for this? Thank you, Gordy. Can I have a second, please? Christian, thank you. Comments or questions regarding this resolution? I guess it would be the same question. How confident are you that you have this money coming?
I would say it's not 100%, but it's pretty as close as you could get. As close as you could get without giving a guarantee, I would say. We've been reaching through our state association for the county, and as well as our friends of the towns have been doing the same thing, asking the governor's office. We have been told that he believes infrastructure spending is important to the economic recovery from the virus, and these are also all bond supported funding. So it's not a real reward for him to pull that money back. It's about 25 cents on the dollar. So we've been given a solid go-ahead, but I couldn't give you a 100% guarantee. I guess there's nothing you can really guarantee in these days and age, but I'm fairly confident that we will get this funding.
And what would be Plan B if we did not get it?
Plan B would be I would probably have to move some money around within the county road fund, but I could free up that money by cutting some costs.
Because this has to get done. We can't have this slope.
Yeah, this is like an emergency repair, basically.
Right. All right, thank you, Tim. Any other questions for Tim? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. All right. Resolution 10. Go ahead, Tim.
Another award of bid. This is for the T-hanger demolition and apron reconstruction at the county airport. Again, we put project out to bid and received several bids. The lowest was Finger Lakes Envirotech from Painted Post. The amount to demolish the T-hanger and restore the site according to bid specifications is $142,335.08. This will be a an award that is contingent upon receiving a grant from the FAA. It will be a 100% funded grant from the FAA. There will be no state share, no local share. All of the AIP projects from the federal government are being funded through the CARES Act. So when we do get this grant, I would expect it probably within the next few weeks. Actually, I normally would have expected it in July and August, but considering we just got our first CARES grant that we'll be talking about shortly, the grant for this could come out fairly quickly. And if it does, we'd like to do the work this summer.
Very good. All right. Can I have a motion for resolution 10, please? Thank you,
move it.
Gordy, and thank you, Christian. Comments or questions regarding this resolution?
So Tim, this has got nothing to do with the 67,000 FAA grant we just put on the agenda for today. This is separate.
This is it would be completely separate. Yeah, the other grant that we're going to talk about later is almost a stimulus grant that's being provided to all general aviation airports across the country. It's completely unrelated.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tim? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 10 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. All right. Resolution 11, amend the capital project budget for the highway. Go ahead, Tim.
This is our normal annual restoration of funding within our state-aided projects. Again, we are allocating funds provided through the CHIPS program, the Pave New York program, and the extreme weather recovery program that the state offers to us. Again, you know, I can't guarantee 100% that we get these funds, but we're operating on the assumption from pretty good information in Albany that we will be getting them. And as such, we are amending existing projects that we have to add the 2020 funding from those three fund sources. And you know, if everything goes well, we'll plan on spending it this summer and hopefully get good pricing on our asphalt.
All right, can I have a motion for this resolution, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Andy, and I need a second. Thank you, Gordy. Comments or questions for Tim? So Tim, what if we don't get the money?
I'm actually going to probably hold off on my work for a little bit, to be honest with you. I think the further we get into summer, the better I'll feel about getting it. I would be shocked if the governor, you know, pulled the money in December after everybody's already spent it. I also don't want to sit and do nothing because I'm afraid that if it's sitting around in 2021, I'll definitely pull it. So it's kind of a catch-22, but I guess in trying to gamble as best I can and trying to get as close as to a 100% guarantee as I can, I'm going to probably wait until late June, possibly early July before I even touch this funding, just to be doubly sure. If the funding isn't in place if it gets pulled before then, obviously we're not going to do any work. We're probably just going to turtle mode this summer and do some maintenance for the rest of the summer. But if it looks like it hasn't been touched by the end of June, I'm probably going to move ahead. If it gets pulled after the fact for some strange reason, Scott, I know we have enough money in infrastructure and bridge and road reserve. I just don't know if you've got other plans on using that for sales tax problems in the budget.
Well, at this point, that's probably where we would take it from, is those reserves, and then deal with 2020 budget hopefully by year end.
All right, it's just scary because we're counting on this, but we know that the state is in bad shape. And I know they're trying to get some deal worked out in Washington, but if that doesn't happen, we don't know where we're going to be in the middle of summer. So it's a little frightening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand it. Like I said, I'm trying to, you know, be as responsible as we can with it. I don't want to not use it and then have it clawed away for sure next year.
Right.
But I also don't want to spend it all up front and then have a cut come in July. I'm going to try to parse it out over the season. Again, delay some of it till the end of June, early July, and then probably really a bulk of our work. You know, most of our work is funded in that highway overlay project. That stuff won't really occur till probably September or October. So we'll have a really good read on the bulk of our program by then for sure. And we, again, we won't be spending that money till the end of summer.
Okay.
So just
Yeah.
trying to set it
I
up,
think you're doing what
set it
you
up
can
as
do.
conservatively as I can.
Yeah, we're being as prudent as possible. We just don't know where we're gonna be week by week, but I think we're all just trying to do the best we can, so.
Madam Chair,
I agree with your plan. If it's any council, if that means anything. All right, I'll
Madam
call
Chair,
the
I have a
vote for
question.
this. Any other questions for Tim?
Yes, I have a question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Tim, I know this is a little off subject, but it is and it isn't. Where are we on the firing range? And if you're going to turtle mode, that would be a good project to finish off.
It is, and I'm hoping we can actually finish it off, even if we don't go into turtle mode. It's the firing range and the radio tower driveway down in Bethany, which we've already started working on, are two projects I'd like to get wrapped up before we get into the meat of summer. Firing range is really close in terms of the earthwork and getting some topsoil and grass growing in there. I know there's additional work in terms of lighting and getting some lean-tos and stuff built in there, but yeah, that's definitely somewhere we could stay busy if we don't have asphalt to put on the roads.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay, Tim, did you want to go right into the jail discussion, the capital needs, or did you want to put your other resolution forward now?
It probably would be easier to do the other resolution first, just get that out of the way, and then we can do the discussion on the jail. So I did ask the sheriff and the jail superintendent to jump in. I'm not sure if they're on yet. I don't see them, but if we could do the resolution first, maybe that'd give them a chance to jump in.
Yeah, let's do that. So this is the item that we just added, the grant accepted for the airport. Can I have a motion for this, please? Thank you, Gordy. And can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christian. Go ahead, Tim.
So this is a grant. We actually, we received it this morning. It does have a fairly quick turnaround on it. The FAA would like it approved and back to them by no later than June 18th, which is why I asked the chairwoman to add it to our agenda tonight. And if we couldn't have squeezed it in tonight, I would have probably asked to process it through Ways and Means. But this is a $69,000 grant that's being provided to all of the general aviation facilities across the nation. It's being funded under the CARES Act. It's intended to be used as stimulus for airports to help, because obviously air traffic has dropped off the face of the earth, and we're going to probably see a drop in our revenue for fuel sales at the airport, and probably as it goes across the summer. The revenue from this grant can basically be used in any expense related to the airport, whether it's operation or even construction. Scott and I have talked about it, and the cleanest and easiest thing for the county to do, and really probably the best benefit to the county, is to use the $69,000 towards the existing debt service that we pay on the terminal and main hangar when it was constructed. This would allow us to free up some sales tax, which I know is going to be important for us at the end of the year. So we would recommend authorizing, Shelley to sign the grant and get that back to the FAA, and then direct Scott to amend the budget for a budget item transfer to decrease the use of sales tax and then increase the federal aid transportation funding in its place.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Gordy.
Move it.
Okay, thank you. And Christian, will you second? All right, any comments or questions for Tim on this? I think it's well thought out, and I like the way you and Scott have approached this, so I'm in favor of it. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. All right. Is the sheriff on?
I don't see him on. I asked both Bill Zippel and Bill Sharon to join in Paul Osborne and I can kind of walk through the existing jail, the capital needs and things. If we're gonna hold off on the new jail, I did ask both bills to join on from some potential operational changes and impacts and costs from that perspective. So I don't know if you want us to go forward with the capital discussion and maybe they jump in.
Yes, why don't we get started?
Okay. Legislator Stein, Chairwoman Stein had asked me to, I think it's one of the last Ways and Means or public service meetings, talk about, if the new jail is deferred for any length of time relative to revenue problems. We have an existing facility that we've been basically, duct taping and baling twine together for the last couple of years with the expectation we'd have a new facility in its place. What I did was I went through our DUDE system, our DUDE solution system, which is our facility maintenance system. We have a software component within that program that allows us to look at our existing components, whether it's equipment, capital parts of our buildings, and do a cost analysis, basically looking forward into a future over a number of years, and it will more or less capitalize based on the age of the equipment and the cost of the equipment and things like that. So I ran a report on the jail and looked at kind of a 3 to 5 year horizon as a start. And it kicked back a report that's got a number of items on it that I sent it out this morning. You should have the spreadsheet with you. But it identified about $3.5 million worth of projects and things that could basically are kind of in a canned schedule of work for the next 5 years. Some of it's pretty low priority stuff, like in wall painting and floor finishes and things like that. I went a little further into the program and highlighted through the spreadsheet, highlighted some of the more critical system needs from a life safety standpoint. HVAC primarily is the biggest item, and then some of our fire protection and even some of our plumbing needs. The building obviously is it's over 40 years old, and the HVAC system's getting pretty aged. The sanitary system, the plumbing, sinks, the controls for the sinks, the drainage that's in the crawl space in the walls behind the cells, a lot of it's leaking and needs to be replaced. We've actually already started replacing large pieces of that over the last couple of years. But if we're gonna hold on to this facility for a couple more years, there's definitely some costs that we're gonna have to put into this building to kind of hold it together. There are 5 air handling systems, HVAC systems that are in the attic above the jail that are all basically at their lifespan. That's probably the bulk of where our work is at. We've got an aged sprinkler system, some heads and valves and controls that need to be upgraded. And then even some stuff on the exterior of the building. If you look at, there's some leaky windows. There's a lot of brick that needs to be repointed. That the high priority stuff, I've got it estimated at $1.1 million using the DUDE costing. I've applied a kind of a 30% increase to that based on prevailing wage, because when we had our facility condition assessment done in 2018, the folks that came in and did that just basically did it on industry standards. They didn't put a New York factor to that. So I've inflated that a little bit, so that gets us at our 5-year cost at about $1.5 million. Now this is just looking at the jail, the rear portion of the building. This doesn't consider the Genesee Justice and the front end of the building, which has its own issues and problems. We've had been looking at the stonework on that front part of the building for several years. We've been applying for historic preservation grants year after year with no success. There's easily $750,000 that you could put on the front end of the building just from a cosmetic stonework standpoint. If you drive by on Main Street, and you don't even have to slow down anymore, you can just kind of see it as you go by. There's large chunks of rock that have fallen off the front of that facade behind the bushes on the front porch. If you were to walk in the building and look up over your head, the archway there's some stonework that's starting to slide out, getting to the point where we're probably going to have to put some temporary bracing in to hold it up. So the front end of the building has its own separate issues from a exterior historic preservation standpoint than the rear, the jail portion does. But the building together, you could easily drop $2.5 million into it and you would still just have what you have today. So that's kind of the immediate, probably critical capital needs that we'd be looking at if we held off on doing the new jail. Paul and I both met with Bill Ziffel and Bill Sharon last week to discuss that, this stuff getting ready for public service. And we also talked about and potentially any operational changes based on how the jail is operating right now. I think the jail population's down below 35 inmates total. Bill Sharon asked the question, is there a feasibility or possibility that the state can come in and say, well, now you've got the room you need to house females? That in itself would be, the operational change to do that would be very, very costly. I don't even know how you would begin to peel that off. You'd probably have to do another study. You'd have to parcel out a floor for females versus males. There'd be some significant capital changes to adjust how the jail operates. So we kind of brushed over some.
If we're here.
Oh, you're on. Great.
Yeah, we had some difficulties, but.
Bill, do you want to talk about the potential from an operating standpoint, if the conditions change at the jail, if the state was to say, hey, if the house females or you need to do medical at the jail, how that would impact capital construction costs within the existing jail?
Well, the concern I would have is that if this is going to be prolonged, is that we're going to have to make some major renovations within the interior of the jail, which are going to be extremely costly. And, to deal with the female population, to expand our medical, to comply with the compliance or the classification issues and so forth, and to provide programs that they want. So, and what that would entail at this point, I'm just estimating to be, millions of dollars to do that.
Yeah, so basically to hold on to our to put the new jail on pause definitely saves big money in terms of the construction costs, but there's always an equal and opposite reaction in terms of having the existing jail that we need to maintain through that period of time, and there's costs of doing that. So that was what Shelley had kind of asked us to highlight. So Bill and Paul or myself, any one of us can answer questions relative to the facility or costs related to it.
I have a question. Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
I understand that we need to do some work maybe to the jail if we're going to continue to use it. We weren't thinking of putting that money into it because we weren't going to continue using it. But where does the female thing come from? Like, is there some threat of that, or did someone say something, or like, why would we convert that jail to house females?
Look, they're young because the state isn't going to continue allowing us to house females out for an extended length of time. They've made concessions over the years since this was built in the late 80s. And one of the things that drove the new jail plan and construction was bringing female inmates back into our own jurisdiction. They've already taken our what am I trying to say?
Variance?
Thank you. Our variance away for males and weekenders. And it's only a matter of time, I feel, before that will go away for females. And they'll say, well, as long as the population's down, you've got to house them there, which is going to it's going to be a huge problem, both logistically and physically within the physical plan of the jail, because we just don't have that kind of separation without doing some major renovation and construction.
So again, we have no reason to believe that they're going to do that. We just think it could happen, maybe.
I have every reason to believe it will happen if things continue the way they are. I don't have any reason to believe it won't.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Gary.
Actually, a comment. I hate to put more money in this whole facility that we have to. I say we spend the bare minimum we have to get along to meet the fire and HVAC, but the rest of the stuff, the commission, I think, will go along if they know you're moving forward with a new jail. Even if it's a snail's pace, I think they'll go along with you. So I think, we don't want to spend good money after bad money.
I'm with you. I don't want to spend money that we don't have to spend, first of all, and the state may be clawing back a good portion of our money already from our budget. So I would say, where are we going to get this money from, these millions of dollars for prisoners? Where are we going to get it from?
Bill and Bill, do you sense that communication with the commission literally, and just like we were doing when we started the new feasibility and got to 90% design and 100%, drafting documents for bid and things like that, might help us in terms of, shall we say, holding them off rather than them coming down and saying, that's it, you're going to do this, this, and this right now with your existing facility and your females and your lack of a variance?
I suspected under the conditions that we're in right now that, we're going to be able to buy more time than we would have if this would never have happened. But I still think they're going to want to see some progress and the dedication still towards building a new facility to accommodate all of our needs.
So where are we with showing progress? What is something we could do that would show that there's a good faith effort to move forward with the jail when we have the financial security to do that? Anybody have any idea what that would be?
I think right now we're okay because of these, the circumstances everybody's in. They know that we're also on pause with the jail, and but my concern is why dump more money into this building that really is just a waste of money. We're not going to be able to take the HVAC with us or anything like that.
I think we're all on the same page there. It doesn't sound like people want to spend millions of dollars on this building, especially when we don't know what we're facing in the next several months. So I appreciate, the work that went into presenting this to us. But as I looked on that list, it didn't seem like there was anything that was rated as high priority. It was all low to medium. Is there anything that's an absolute high priority right now?
Actually, the term high priority doesn't get used in our program very often. We do most everything in medium. I don't recall seeing anything in the list. I can look at the deeper list, but I don't recall seeing anything that was high priority. Again, this is all stuff that's 3 to 5 years away, possibly. But I'll take a deeper dive. If I see anything that's high priority, I'll definitely bring it to your attention. But for the most part,
we can't have a building that's dangerous. We have to have,
right.
It has to be safe. Other than that, and that would be to me high priority. The rest of it, if we can put that money into our new jail, I think that's what we need to do.
Chairman Stein, I agree wholeheartedly with you in regard to the matters that are high priority versus medium or low priority. I'm sorry, Clattenburg. The high priority comes in when it when it breaks down and it has to be fixed immediately, especially in this facility that's 24/7, and any lack of services to inmates requires reporting to the commission. And if anything went down for 24 hours, we'd be faced with housing inmates out to another county. And depending on what it was, it could be all of the inmates. So that's when it becomes a high priority.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do we have any amount of, what's the cost if that were to happen, if we had to all of a sudden just move everybody out of that jail? Anybody have any idea what that would be?
Figure at least $100 a day average now, plus trying to find the locations for the other counties that takes some of these individuals. So you're talking.
And that's right now at a low population, which today is 32 males and 1 female already housed out. At the end of this, or as we come out of this, hopefully the pressure is going to increase with population and cases, because the thing you've got to remember is the courts have been shut down, and there's a bunch of trials and sentencings that have been put off along with intermittent sentences. And they will all come to fruition late June, early July, whatever. And the jail population is going to go up. That's almost a given.
So I guess we need to think about what the direction is that we come through here. Is there some kind of recommendation that the sheriff and maintenance wants to present? I think this would probably be something that should come back to us, or maybe even if we're gonna put money into a jail that we're not gonna use much longer. I think maybe Legislator Stein might want to make that a committee of the whole discussion. So I'm grateful for the information, and I think we have to have every legislator kind of weigh in on this and decide, you know, what the direction is we want to go. I just don't want to spend money we don't have when we need it to build a new jail. So,
Bottom line, we just put as much money into this as we absolutely have to.
right.
Right.
So I guess we need to know when that point is. Are we at that point where we have to do some things now, or can we still kind of put it off?
Operational wise,
Yeah.
I think we can still push it off. Maintenance wise, I'll leave that to Tim.
Okay,
Yeah, maintenance wise, we've already taken care of some of the high priority stuff. We replaced the elevator car and the safety controls of that. We did that last year. That was kind of one of the major things. Paul's staff has just recently done some of the pumps on the boilers and things like that. So that we've done that. Again, there's nothing high priority pressing. This is all stuff that we know is on the horizon that can be put off right now. Quite frankly, if I was to give you a recommendation on where I would go with it, I would probably continue on with the design and get that thing, even if it has to sit on a shelf, get it ready to have the design done and ready to bid. And then when you have better clarity on your future funding in terms of sales tax and revenue, put that thing out to bid and hopefully get some really good bid prices, because you're going to have some hungry contractors out there chomping at the bit, since the private construction industry has basically been locked down for quite a while now, and probably will be for foreseeable future. So that would be my recommendation, is to keep pressing ahead with design, get it done, and when you think you're comfortable spending money on construction, pull the trigger and hopefully get a really good bidding environment.
Mary Ann, can I jump in?
yeah, sure, Matt. I was just gonna say, why don't you give us your opinion here?
Yeah, actually, the project is 100% designed. The only thing we held off at the end was we did not have Pike spend additional time costing out the design work. But as far as the engineer and architects, they've completed 100% design work. We wanted to, as Tim has phrased, turtle up a little bit here on the project. So we until we knew what the scope and of the project was, we wanted to hold off on utilizing that time of Pike going through and putting a cost associated with that design. But we're there for a 4-pod, 184 bed jail. We're there with the design and ready to go. And now it's just a matter of when the dust settles to see if that's going to be what we're moving forward with. And we'll continue to have discussions with our partners, our regional partners, and anything we could possibly do down the road. But as far as going forward, one question asked earlier was also, what can we do right now? In my opinion, I think our sheriff and jail superintendent have built a great relationship with the COC, and so I feel comfortable that when they call us asking where we stand, that they understand that we're at a reasonable place, that we have a design that we can show them, that we haven't given up on the project. And I think we're in a good situation of not having to spend money to demonstrate that we're serious. But I think they'll be understanding of the pause that we're in right now because of the state of the economy and the state of the world.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I guess.
May I jump in?
Oh, sure. I didn't know you were with us yet. Hi, Shelby. You're out of the control room.
We're out of the control room. There are several things that I think that we've been asked to do by the governor, and one of those is to reimagine government and especially in regards to the incredible cost of this jail project. If we can't move forward with talking about and demonstrating an opportunity for us to do a shared services model with a jail, then we're missing the boat as far as I'm concerned. And I also think that once we have a conversation with all the legislators together, we also need to fully understand what the new impacts of the social justice reforms that went through this last budget, which none of us have really talked about because we've all been talking about COVID, and that's where our focus has been. But, you know, one thing that we don't want to think about, but I think that we have to think about inside of that conversation is what would be the cost of a Commission of Correction order to close our jail at the same time. And so before we do have this discussion, I think that there are significant issues and information that we still need to gather to educate ourselves on, along with what the maintenance folks think and what the operational folks think. But as far as our opportunity to reimagine how we do things in government, this is the time to strike while the iron is hot.
Thank you, Shelley. I totally agree.
And Mary Ann, to that end also, between Bill and Paul and Tim, both Bills, excuse me, is there anything from a life safety standpoint that, I know you don't have a crystal ball, today you would say, oh my gosh, that is so on the edge of failure. That's when the commission could come in and say, what are you people doing keeping 32 people in this jail today?
Paul, you want to comment on that? You have a better grip on it than I do day to day.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the two items that we really have to take a look at, and we will as soon as the season's changed over from heating to cooling, is the two boilers that we have in the basement. We run into issues with that. We've had some pump issues which we've replaced, but the boilers themselves have some heat exchanger problems that are going to arise here, and it's going to get inspected as soon as the boilers are shut down. So we'll have a better idea of what the cost factor is for that. But to replace those boilers, we're looking at probably just a generalized replacement is between 20 and 25 per boiler if needed. So if the heat exchangers, if those are bad and they're cracked, obviously that's an issue with the smell, the exhaust on those. So if that is an issue, then we have to get those replaced, and those aren't cheap. Or is it the same price or better to replace the boilers than it is to do the heat exchangers? So there's some issues.
How much of an issue is the generator at this point, or could it be in the future?
The generator?
Yeah.
That I'm not certain on. I mean, it's that's a 20-year-old generator, as we discussed the other day. So if that fails, obviously the repair of that is expensive, depending on what it is. But I would assume that's probably 100,000 minimum just for the generator. And then
well, if that failed, Paul, could we bring a temporary unit in like we used to do at the nursing home and hook that up and have that work, and rent it for, a period of time?
Yeah, if we had to, that would be the solution if it was to the case of where, it was 100,000 to replace it, or we couldn't fix it. Yes. There's some modifications that would have to be done, which would be a little bit expensive, but we should be able to tie into the transfer switch that's currently there. And it's just a different method of doing it. We have to have a contractor do that because we don't have the specialty to do that. The only other item that we have immediate is in the kitchen. When we did our inspection last year of the hood system, there's a $4,500 additional repair that needs to be made inside the hood. When they redid the design of that, they didn't put it inside the hood or in the exhaust. Was the fire suppression system, and it's not tied. There's nothing tied in. So that's an item that we do have to address. And like I said, it's a $4,500 item that we've been kind of holding off, trying to figure out where the jail is going to go. But if we're going to maintain this we don't start construction for a couple more years, and we take 3 years to build the new jail. I mean, we're at 5 years. We should have that taken care of for the minimal cost it is.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, what's the plumbing look like? Because I remember when I was there, we had water running down inside the catwalk. Has that all been fixed?
I mean, they've hodgepodged it together. We just did some major repairs, last month. We had 3 leaks that happened within 2 days that needed some major plumbing work. Literally, the copper piping for the sewer is so thin now that it's just getting pinholed. And so we're hobnobbing it and cobbing it together as we get the repairs. But if we have a major failure, it's going to be a major amount of work to get that. And that could cause where we have to shut it down for 24 hours because of the smell and also because of the lack of the plumbing available in the sense of how long it's going to take us to fix. So there's some of those issues that could arise, momentarily because the piping is so poor.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so I will refer this back to our chairwoman and maybe a future committee of the whole discussion on where we go from here. It would be nice if we could all be in a room together once again. Maybe it's kind of hard to talk about all this over the internet, but I appreciate the update. Anything else you want to add, Shelley?
No, I think that we have the right minds in the room to get us the information that we need so that we can make the best decisions. And the opportunity, again, to reimagine government is in our hands, and we just have to take it.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Any other comments regarding this discussion? All right, thank you very much, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Pam, anything about the department review for assigned counsel?
No, nothing has been received.
Okay, so I'm just going to direct you to contact them and to see when a date would be that they're available to come back and do that. Okay.
Thank you.
I know with the courts closed and everything, they're probably just not prepared to do that right now. All right, thank you. County manager.
Well, just in general, as you know, we've been trying to keep up with what's going on with the state as far as the reopening. Obviously, we're now as a county generally in phase 1 with more and more literally everyday details as to what is or is not allowed under these general categories. Again, the state of New York, Shelley and I were just on the control room conference call. That was a little frustrating, I would say, the least, with regard to what they kind of want to brush through and keep things literally to a 30-minute conversation. And then, we'll come back tomorrow. What we're continuing to see and what we're asking, and again, it even involves many of our county officials, particularly in the board with the health department, is what is it you really are going to ask us to do? Where is the equipment to do that, particularly the test kits? Apparently, the nursing homes in this county, almost to a facility, will be or were delivered a significant increase in testing kits and capability. One of the problems still is where will all that get lab tested and verified with regard to the test. But again, the health department is trying to keep up with that at the same time, obviously dealing with the issues of, potential contact tracing, as well as the testing that we're doing with regard to people who provide symptomology or issues. We, Genesee, seemingly are not quite as at risk as we are to some extent in Orleans County, particularly a report we heard this morning from Paul. But again, also we know law enforcement is dealing with issues, as are to some extent our health people with regard to gatherings and things of that nature. That again, it is still very much in the control of and back to the original order, 10 or less people, particularly unrelated people, and anything that might impose potential risk with regard to positive contact tracing, and then what the state will then look at with regard to that dashboard that they've set up that obviously you can go to every day. And I think we've given you the links in a couple of emails, particularly the ones we received either yesterday or today from state ESD, that you can actually track what's going on in the Finger Lakes dashboard, the 7 of 7. And now that Western New York, as of tomorrow, will be allowed to start its phase 1 reopening, what that does or doesn't do for us with regard to people moving back and forth across or into our economy, as limited as even that is, but also what it is that, again, the health directors, particularly in the 9-county Finger Lakes region, working together to provide best advice and guidance And that's what Paul and company are trying to do. And at the same time, we're still continuing to develop, and we'll have a conversation with all our department people this week with regard to their plans for reopening, building by building, department by department, the measures that, Eve Hens, Paul Osborne, Paul Pettit, and Tim Yeager are working with us on with regard to the safety, both of our employees, but also with regard to our clients as they start coming back, in a fairly gradual manner. And again, it looks like for us in general, that as long as the metrics stay green across the board for the region, we can start bringing more of our workforce back as of the end of May, early June. But again, that is subject obviously to things we don't have any control over. We as an individual county have no ability to go ahead and start doing things unilaterally. There has been some noise, and I think it got probably quashed today by 3 counties of the 5-county Western region that basically wanted to go rogue. And I sense that based on the fact the governor was literally in Buffalo today, that was one of the ways to try to put the kibosh on that. But again, they're going to have to function like we are as a group. Nobody gets to go on their own. Nobody gets to make up their own rules. We are, though, charged with, and I'll wrap up here, basically enforcement is in our lap, whether it be the health department, zoning, code enforcement, or basically the bottom line is really more and more likely to come to some part of law enforcement. And we heard on the control room comment from our neighbors to the east that they would like the state patrol to be really part of this, really the bolstering of and sort of the backup even to our own law enforcement if the kind and considerate request for people to stop doing something that seems to be violating or is violating the guidances that state patrol would be there to help. We don't understand that that's necessarily going to happen. But again, that's what we're dealing with literally on a day-to-day basis with the way this entire process is rolling out, starting with phase 1.
Thank
Can
you,
I ask
Jay.
a question, Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Andy.
Let's say it got down to the police force, exclude code enforcement and zoning for a minute, assume it's someone's home or something, that would have to be a police officer. What's the threat? Like, what's the crime? It's an executive order, and what's the consequence? And I mean, that's a really gray area, right? And
Absolutely, Andrew.
We act like we got
Absolutely.
power, but we maybe we really don't. So let's not pretend we did, right?
Well, and that's the $64 question. The governor believes that his executive orders have a certain degree of legal enforceability, up to including writing something as far as some kind of a citation, quote unquote, an appearance ticket, and or I guess what I would call even detention/arrest capability. But that is very much not what everybody generally believes, nor is anybody trying to approach it from that perspective as to what part of statute are you going to rely on aside from these executive orders, and whether or not the state attorney general and some of the other upper echelon are willing to stand there and say specifically, this is what you can or can't do if you find yourself in this situation.
Well, it's really about our sheriff, right, Bill? Is he still on? I mean, does he feel he's comfortable with this? Is he willing to do this? Does he want to? Do we want him to? Is another question, right?
I can tell you in general, the state keeps advising us to not have to try to not engage in the, I guess we'll call it the heaviest hand, but they recognize and haven't really dealt with the idea that there are going to be some people, and we've already run into them in a couple of cases, where when they are approached and asked by either health department people or even law enforcement, the response is not what I would call positive or compliant. And then the question is, now what are we going to do? And to what extent is this going to become, I guess what I would call a potential incident, and therefore something that literally does get into, where people are either hands upon or other, I guess what I would call aggressive action, then would result in an actual violation of civil or maybe criminal code. But nobody's looking to do that. And this was certainly not part of what the state has set up through the ESD as to these levels of enforcement.
Well, doesn't this body in conjunction with Bill, the sheriff, need to decide what we really want to do? I mean, this is a very important question potentially a volatile question. Like, we really haven't discussed the issue yet or made a decision. You know, we know what the state's saying, but what do we say? What's our direction to the sheriff? And again, with his thoughts in mind, obviously, don't we need to have that conversation and make a decision in that regard?
Yeah, could I jump in? This
Go
is
ahead,
Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, to that end there, and I don't know if some of you saw this, there was a very alarming video where 4 or 5 officers in New York City wrestled a woman to the ground in front of her kid because she didn't have her mask on. She had it down around her neck, and for some reason, she just didn't pull it up. And that was a very ugly incident. I think that's what you're getting to, Andy. And the mayor basically of New York City said, we are not going to do that over masks again. And we have been around and around on this. Larry took a look at some of this stuff, and Bill would tell you that the Sheriff's Association, their attorney wrote a very long memo saying basically kind of the same thing. Possibly if they didn't disperse or something of that nature, it could be disorderly conduct or failing to obey a lawful order of the sheriffs. But even the Sheriff's Association, Bill and I talked about this last week, was not really gung ho on that course of action. I also have been talking with the Western New York group and all the attorneys, Livingston County, Bend County, Schuyler County, a lot of these counties around are going through the same process. The governor keeps saying that there's a section of the public health law violating an order, a public health order that you can use. But again, not many people are real keen on that. And then you finally have the situation that we have the bail reform. So if we got a group of people gathering, or that lady, with their mask, and the officer said, that's it, disorderly conduct, he hands her a ticket. And they don't have to disperse.
Yeah.
That got into what we did, and I explained to you a little bit because in consultation with Larry, more importantly, what happens when somebody violated the quarantine orders. And we basically, between Larry and the sheriff and I, came to the opinion that the best way to do it was get an order from Judge Zambito, and the order saying that if they did not do this, that they could be basically arrested and taken to that facility in Monroe County that opened up for that purpose. And we, of course, got an municipal agreement. So Larry was pretty much on the side of civil action in that regard. We didn't really get in length about, that was the most important issue. Obviously, somebody gathering in a group or whatever, or having some type of a rally or something like that. I think everybody's saying try to get voluntarily compliance, but I don't think we want an incident of our sheriffs taking down a lady with just because she didn't have her mask or face covering. So we'll try and get you a little bit more information, and you're right, you probably should get some direction, but right now we don't have much direction, and we're trying.
I understand. I guess, again, from the legislative group perspective, maybe this warrants more discussion, and I don't know if you guys agree, but again, ultimately, I guess it's the sheriff's decision, but I'm sure he'd like to have a conversation. If I were him, I'd want our thoughts on it, right?
Yeah, and if that's something you want to schedule for the next meeting, we definitely could put that on the agenda, any kind of discussion, or at least questions that we might have. I think, at this point, we have to have faith in the people of our county that they're going to make an effort to do the right thing, and to remember that these precautions aren't about taking away your civil liberties, but they're about the health and safety of the most vulnerable among us.
And I think, Mary Ann, that's exactly what we were talking about this morning, and what the public health directors have been also urging is, can we approach this from the standpoint of this is still a health pandemic, and how can we move with a positive message to keep reinforcing voluntary compliance and taking the precautions, and not making it, as Andrew, as I sense you could look at it, or worrying about the fact that it becomes a confrontational kind of issue. We know that there are some people who, that may just be the only way they want to react. But the thing we talked about this morning with our group, when we talked with the public health director and emergency management and city police, village police, and the county sheriff, was, can we continue to reinforce the message that we have to get past this as a community at large in general, and not let a few individuals and/or certain isolated incidents turn into a major problem for us, and the community has to keep rallying around the idea. We have to get past this as together, not as a bunch of individuals, or as Paul would call them, the COVIDiots, running around deciding that because today is May 18th, all bets are off.
I think we've all sacrificed a lot here, and it would be a shame if we took a step backwards collectively as a county. And, we just have to keep in mind that we're doing this because we don't want the elderly and the vulnerable to get sick. And I know the frustration. People want to get back to normalcy, and nobody wants that more than I do. But I think we'll put our faith in the sheriff right now that he'll know what to do, and we'll move on from there. And I think if we see major issues, Andrew, then yes, we need to address that as a group for sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments about this issue? Anything else, Jay?
Sorry about that, Marianne. I'm good.
Oh, okay, thank you. No problem. All right, thank you. Pam, you have an item?
Just that the next meeting of the Public Service Committee is Monday, June 15th.
Thank you. And we'll move on to our final resolutions under the chair report. The first being a reappointment to the planning board. And I'll probably butcher this man's name, Tom Schwabel. I know him. I served on the planning board with him. Excellent guy, great member, but I'm butchering his last name. But I'm very happy he's willing to serve on the board another term. Can I have a motion to move this reappointment?
I'll move it.
Thank you. And a second, please. Andy, will you second?
Yes, I'm sorry. Gordy had his hand raised.
Oh, I can't see Gordy. He's not on the screen.
Okay.
There's only 4 people at a time in front of me. Okay, any comments or questions about that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's carried. And the next one is appointments to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board. Jeanette Veazey Post and Leanne McKenzie. Can I have a motion to move those names for reappointment? Thank you, Andrew.
I'll second.
Thank you, Gordy. Any comments or questions about these appointments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That's carried. And I think that concludes our business today. Any comments for this board before we adjourn?
Nice job, Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Motion for adjournment, Christian,
So
thank
moved.
you. And Andy, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, Pam, for all your hard work.
Be well,
Thank you
be
for the
safe.
committee members. Stay safe.
Bye, guys.